Hey, what's going on, family? Isaac Mashman here. I wanted to share an exclusive presentation I delivered in Denver, Colorado for the Atlantic-Oase Professional Conference. It's about a 45-minute keynote, as well as there's a Q&A at the end. I talk about what is your personal brand, how you as a contractor can position yourself as the #1 person in your industry. And although this is specifically aimed at water feature professionals, the cool thing is this speech and this keynote, the things that I talk about, also apply to other industries as well. Hope you enjoy. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, leave a like, leave a share. I would love to have your full attention for this feature presentation. Much love. Awesome. Number one, thank you so much for coming to my session. I know that there are other sessions that you guys could have attended, so it means the world to me to have each and every one of you here. Now, I know that I'm kind of the outlier. I'm networking with each and every one of you, having these conversations. You're like, why are you here? Do you build ponds? Do you sell products? And time again, I'm like, absolutely not. I actually run a consulting firm. I specialize in personal branding, and the reason I'm here today is back in April, I went on Eric Triplett's podcast, The Pond Digger. Had a great conversation, and pretty much within a month, Jeff Niemhoff reached out, asked for the introduction, and said, Isaac, I'd love to have you here. So that's why. Now this subject is a little bit different compared to a lot of the other sessions here. It's talking about the person rather than the business itself. And this is something that is relatively new in terms of awareness. We're always focusing on getting more awareness, more ad spend, more visibility for our company's website, more testimonials, all that good stuff. But we very rarely treat our personal brand as if it's a business itself. Now, before I start, I'd like to ask a couple of you, when you hear the term personal brand, what comes to mind? Anybody?
Pond digger.
Pond digger, okay, good. Had a good.
What a customer sees.
What a customer sees. Okay. Anybody else?
What the customer see of the owner?
The owner. Big part. Now there's a massive difference between your personal brand and your company brand. So your personal brand is you. It is who you are. A lot of times people today will say that you create a new Instagram account or get a website, you're creating a new personal brand, but I have a philosophical approach there. I believe that we have had our personal brand from the moment we were born. Think about it, our parents gave us our name, nurtured into us those pieces of information that became our character, right, our traits, determined our religious belief, the God that we pray to, the political ideology that we adhere to. And so as you grow up, go to school, you're the class clown, you're the most likely to succeed, you're the athlete, then you write a resume for college and for getting jobs. That resume is effectively a representation of your personal brand. So now as business owners, as suppliers, as distributors, you have to ask yourself, how can I get in front of as many people as possible, develop trust, nurture those relationships, and ultimately grow my business? Now, before I get into all these finer details, I understand that I am a little bit of a stranger and I want to change that. My name is Isaac Mashman. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, home of the #1 NFL football team. Yeah, it's painful. I suppose the Jets are worse. But anyways, I come from a lower, middle-class family, single-parent household. Didn't meet my biological father until I was, older in life. And my mom, for being a brilliant woman, worked these low-paying jobs. So in large part, I was raised by my grandparents. Now, my grandmother stayed at home to raise me, and my grandfather was a carpenter. So I know what it's like to kind of have that blue-collar upbringing, and he was a very private man. And I understand that privacy, as contractors, is something that you guys like. It's like you don't want to necessarily have everybody in your business. And so there's going to have to become this acceptance of how much you share about your life so people can connect with you, so people can understand you, so people can relate to you and choose to work with you versus every other person in this room. I went through several businesses outside of high school. I was involved in the industry of network marketing, joined a few different companies, great experience, didn't love the industry, which you guys probably know why. Went into podcast management, and from there, started a record label. I was out in California, sleeping on the floor and all that good stuff. But what was interesting is every single business that I was involved in, whenever I made a pivot, whenever I made a change, people were still following me. People were still acknowledging me and saying, hey, I'm supporting your journey, because it wasn't that they were following me for my career or my expertise, they were following me for the individual, which is really exciting because now in 2024, when I launched my new business, Mashman Consulting Group, which specializes in personal branding, I had this entire flow of people that were like, man, I absolutely love what you have going on. And they're lined up in a faithful way to send me referrals, to offer testimonials, to work with me, to buy from me. And that's really cool. And so as business owners yourself, if you can get in front of more people, I mean, think about your family and friends, how many of them might not even know what you do? It's kind of like the real estate agent. And you have a real estate agent who gets involved and wants to sell a house, and their aunt and uncle chooses a different realtor because they didn't think about their cousin or niece or nephew, Susie, who became a real estate agent. That's a problem. That's a lack of awareness. So every single person in this room is effectively your competition. Now I know at the very beginning of today, you started off by saying that we're all a family, right? This is a big team, and I agree with that. But I also believe that in teams, you have healthy competition because you are competing for referrals to be in the spotlight with other contractors, other distributors. The second thing is you're competing for awareness, and you're competing for attention. So every time you create a video on social media or make a post, you have 4 billion people on the internet who could potentially see it, but you have hundreds of millions of people who are also creating content. So you have to position yourself as a public figure in order to effectively grow your personal brand. And personal branding is the way that you stand out from every other landscaper, every other pond guy, because you offer something unique. You offer something that is, I suppose, close to you. And that is where the strategy, which I have a paper that I wrote earlier this year in front of each and every one of you, called Identity Positioning, a Macroscopic View on Personal Branding. I already touched on this a little bit. A lot of people believe that your personal brand is only existing online. It's only your social media footprint, but you can be offline and still go to your chamber of commerce, you can go shake hands, you can go to church, you can connect with people. So your personal brand is existing offline and online. The digital space and all the methods that you're using to communicate with people are extensions of your personal brand. So the term personal brand, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, was actually coined by a business management consultant, Tom Peters, in 1997. Now you think with how many people talk about personal branding, that has been around a lot longer than it has. But in 1997, he published an article called The Brand Called You, which I did reference in the academic paper here. And he talks about how consultants and executives can leverage people just like you have Nike or you have Adidas or Reebok or Amazon or Facebook, and how you can leverage your personal brand as the executive to drive business to your company because you are the person. And I mean, think about this political race, right? Are we voting for policy or are we voting for personality? That's a question I would leave you guys with to kind of think about. A lot of times in politics, we vote for the personality and not the policy itself. And then over the past 25 years, give or take, 3 decades, a lot of people have latched onto the term personal brand and now are positioned as personal branding experts, as agency owners, and they're working with the business owner, not the business itself. And that's where I come in, because I saw that everybody had a social media agency, right? Everybody worked with a business. But how many of you have spent thousands of dollars on hiring a marketing agency to get no conversions? I imagine some of you in this room probably have spent a lot of money. And this, building your personal brand, is a way for you to get organic awareness, organic business, and organic opportunities. And that is a tremendous advantage over every other person in your space. Now, everybody here at the Atlantic-Oase Professional Conference, you guys are all killers. You're industry professionals. But I know there are other companies, there are other conferences, they're not nearly as good. So that's why it's up to you guys to talk about how amazing you are, how the products are better, and how you got involved in the industry, because those are all pieces of information that are really interesting to other people that aren't in the space. I myself, I wouldn't call myself a pond professional. I have a 27-gallon patio pond. I guess I'm in the space, right? But myself, when I was thinking about creating it, I was going to Reddit, I was going to YouTube, and I was looking for videos. I was looking for advice. I wanted to know how I could build it and how I could craft it, and it was because of their expertise that my fish are not dead. So you guys have the ability to be those educators, to be those public figures. Let's think about some successful personal brands. You guys know every single person on the screen right here. We have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You do not know him just for being a wrestler. He has Terramana Tequila. He has Moa Energy Drink. He is a wrestler. He's a movie star. He's a businessman. He has built one of the most dominant and successful personal brands of all time. Then we have Elon Musk, obviously. You don't just know him for Tesla. He is SpaceX. He's the internet personality. He has the Boring Company. He's recently gotten involved in politics. So you have all these different facets and aspects of him, which make him Elon Musk. And then the most applicable person, I believe, that is pertinent to your industry is Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. He has taken all of these industries that are not interesting even. Now, I believe that the pond space and the water feature space is interesting. So you guys have an advantage there because you can appeal to people on an entertainment level. But he has been able to take the most boring of going down in the sewers, right? His first ever episode was down in a sewer, and it turned into an entire television show. He's written a book, he's done public speaking, he has his own podcast. You guys can duplicate those results for yourself. Now, there are three main reasons why somebody would want to build their personal brand. The first is money. You want to make money, you want to generate revenue, whether directly from influencing your business and driving awareness to that business, or maybe you want to monetize your personal brand by writing a book, doing public speaking, monetizing a podcast. Whatever that purpose might be, you want to make money and drive revenue. The more attention you have, the more monetization vehicles seem to come available. You know, one of the things that I understood early on in my career was that obscurity is the enemy of success. If people do not know me, if people do not know you, how can they work with you? How can they refer you? And so even on a relationship standpoint, on a local level, every time you shake somebody's hand, don't just give them a business card. Make sure they add your contact in their phone before you walk off. I've handed out my digital business card to many of you, and I will not let you leave until I know you saved my contact. Because I want to build that relationship long term. And that's the same thing with each and every one of you. And then we can go and talk about, again, not necessarily competing with other people in this room, but finding ways that you can solve their problems, that you can send referrals. I was having a conversation yesterday with Chris. I don't remember his last name. I know that he married a Russian woman. Great dude, crazy beard. And he was talking about how in the space, the water feature space, you have these different clicks, like you click with people. And I think that's evident in the tables whenever you're sitting down and eating, right? You're in your little cliques like high school. And that's cool. But then there will come a point where you need to send a referral to somebody that is outside of your little group. And how do you stand out from the next guy in terms of being a referral? And that is where the personal aspects of you come into play. And I'll talk about that marketing message here in a minute and how you can craft one for yourself. The second reason why you would build your personal brand is mission. You see this with a lot of billionaires today. They go and make their money, and then they have this cool attachment to philanthropy, right? Bill Gates and polio. We have Richard Branson and all of his causes. But they build their personal brand because they understand the more awareness they have, the more, quote, good, probably understand what I'm saying there, they can do with that influence. You see this with people who are, I'm thinking about domestic abuse survivors or people who went through traumatic events. They become the best public speakers. Les Brown was that stuttering kid who grew up in a poor community and became one of the greatest public speakers of our generation. Well, your guys' generation. The second thing, or the third thing, is vanity. Now this doesn't really apply to you guys, but vanity is especially true in terms of entertainers. Think about musicians, rappers, movie stars. A lot of times they just want to build out their personal brand because they like the feeling, they like the fame, they like the emotional connection that they can get to being recognized in public. That's not really the motivating cause for, I would say, any of you guys. But understanding why you would want to take the time to invest in your personal brand, because it is an investment like a business. You're investing in advertising, you're investing in equipment, you're investing in writing a book, so you're investing time. But once you understand what you're looking to get, then we can go ahead and keep you motivated when maybe you're not getting all the results. Maybe you're only getting one like on a Facebook video. Now, what does your audience follow you for? There are 4 main reasons why somebody would follow you. Excuse me. Number one is entertainment. They want to learn or entertainment in terms of they want to feel good about it, right? They want to laugh, they want to cry, they want to be entertained or waste their time. Now you guys as pond professionals, you are in an industry that has such amazing opportunities for viral content. You're going out and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases, building these beautiful water features, waterfalls, koi ponds, fish ponds. You could take and film the entire process, the before and after, and that would go viral on social media. I think about some of the guys that I follow. I think one of his names is Danny Wang, and he does a lot of really expensive mansions out in California. And he has a high drone shot that shows the entire process. And every video goes viral because people want to see the before and after. They want to live vicariously through other people. And so you are able to show the design process and show the end result. The second reason is education. So you guys have an opportunity to educate not only from a B2B standpoint and position yourself as an expert in the space, like Mr. Eric Triplett, he does training for other contractors. So he is positioned as an authority, not only in the B2C space with, the pond digger, but he is also positioned as an authority in B2B with Train with Triplett, right? And so you have the opportunity to do the same exact thing and to educate your audience. You could talk about, hey, these are some of the things that you don't think about when building a koi pond, or this is how you can sell better, or some of the things that Eric was talking about pertaining to, hey, you don't mention the price initially. You ask them for that information, or you don't just call and say, hi, is Greg there? You say, hey, this is Eric Triplett with the Pond Digger. I'm looking to speak with Greg. So it's all about positioning, right? But these are those educational components that you as industry leaders who have been in the space in some cases for 20, 30, 40 years, there's a whole crew of young guys, young women, young professionals that could benefit from your knowledge. So now you're positioned as an expert, and you, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, can write your own book, can do public speaking, or very simply drive more awareness to your company because they would much rather support somebody that they've learned from than support a stranger. And so every time you create a social media post and sacrifice some of your privacy, sacrifice some of your time, you're effectively selling from stage, just like I'm doing right here. But you're doing it on social media, and instead of in front of 50 people, you're in front of 5 million. So it's all about perspective there. The next reason, inspiration and motivation are grouped together. You're motivating somebody to take action. You're showing them what is possible. And this was big because early on I saw people that were public speakers themselves. I saw these big mentors like Gary Vaynerchuk or Andy Frisella. And I'm looking at these people, I'm like, man, I can do that, right? And in your space, if you've built these great pond features, or you've sold and have a network of 10,000 clients that are buying your products as the distributor network, you are in a place that other people strive to be. And so the content and the things that you are producing online is a way to show people that you're somebody worth following and that they can take and view you and call you mentor, just like you called somebody else mentor years ago. The final reason is connection, and this is where the emotional side of things come into play, because people want to feel connected with the people that they're following. They want to know that you're the father, you're the fisherman, you're the person who's not straight-edged, you're the tattooed guy, right? Whatever those little unique aspects of you are, that is appealing to somebody because it gives them a layer of rapport, something that they can relate on. So this is the most important slide, I would say, in this entire presentation. Now, I'll just read off a little bit of this real quick. To craft an omnipresent personal brand and position yourself as a public figure, you must be visible everywhere. You can achieve this through consistent content creation, media features, podcast interviews, public speaking, and strategic associations with industry leaders. You're looking for public edification. Other people saying that this is somebody that I would work with. This is somebody that I would hire. So even if you have a 5% referral fee, right, and you have other people who are sending you business and you're like, hey, here's 5% of the job, or 2%, whatever it is, that is a form of edification. Or me going on Eric's show and having a good conversation, he was able to, with confidence, edify me to his audience. And then Jeff listened to that podcast and said, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. I feel comfortable bringing him to my group, my family, my community. But that is edification, just like you get a video testimonial or a testimonial from a client. right? You do this end result, and you say, hey, Susan, can you go ahead and record a really quick testimonial for me? You take that testimonial, you post it, you publish it, you put it on the website, just like you're collecting a Google review, and that helps people make decisions without even having to necessarily talk to you first, because your track record is evident. If you can have an evident track record, so even though you might create a video on social media, and you might do that for 2 years, and you might not get one client, that is still lowering the objection rate that you would get when somebody, a stranger, comes to your page and they see you for the first time. Now they see that you've posted 200 jobs that you've done. They don't need to question if you can do what you're claiming to do, because your track record is public. It is a display of competence, a public display of competence. So your personal brand should reflect who you are and what you want to be known for. So do you want to be known as the #1 pond expert, right? Do you want to be known as the #1 distributor? You need to understand and ask yourself these things and write that down and latch onto that. Set that goal. And then from there, you position yourself, which I'll go into a couple strategies. And first things first, we need to perform an audit of your personal brand. If you were to run a Google search of me, go to Google or whatever, I dominate the entire search results. Now, it's taken me a lot of time, and it's painstaking, and it's not something that is, I wouldn't tell you that you need to prioritize dominating and being on Google as much as me, but I'm the person in the space, so I need to make sure that I know what I'm talking about, right? But you should at least be the #1 search result. So if you're on multiple social media platforms already, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube, make sure that your social media handle is the exact same. So it's at Isaac Mashman, right? My company page as well, Mashman Consulting Group, is Mashman CG. That is everywhere. My website is mashmancg.com. And so you have to have this seamless brand, not only from a personal brand standpoint, but a business brand standpoint. So there's no question that this is the same person, this is the same entity, this is the same business. The next thing is we need to think about your marketing message. So do you have a really clearly defined marketing message that says, hey, this is who I am and this is what I do? And so if you're going to go on to the next slide, I build ponds, who would buy from that guy? Just somebody you see their post and it's like, I build ponds. Crickets, right? You guys are like, no, of course not. But now imagine you go to connect with somebody for the first time and you read their marketing message in their bio that says, avid fisherman and loving father. I build award-winning koi ponds you can be proud of. What is different about this phrase compared to that phrase? Somebody want to point that out? Description?
There's a human being behind it.
A human being behind it, exactly. Now, would you rather work with a human being or a robot, right? So it's important to note this because most people online, they focus on being these clean-cut, well-kept professionals 24/7. They're afraid of showing their family. Not even for privacy issues, they're just afraid of showing things. They don't want to show them out at dinner. They don't want to show them having drinks with business partners. They don't want to show them traveling. They just want to only focus on business content 24/7. And that doesn't connect you with anybody because you can learn from any other professional, but they cannot learn from Trey Bradley, right? They can't learn from Eric Triplett. They can't learn from Chris or any of the other people that are here. They're learning from one specific individual. So you have a personal hook and a professional punchline. And the other thing that I'll take a minute to note is the avid fisherman and loving father. It's not only showing a human connection, but it's giving them two pieces of information which can help them come to a better decision. Now they know that, hey, oh man, I love fishing too. I want to hire the dude who fishes. We can have a conversation about bass while he's building a bass pond, right? Or you have loving father, okay, so now you know that he's a father, he's a parent, he's somebody who is, I suppose, a bearer of responsibility, so there's more trust there. And then, on terms of the professional punchline, we have, I build award-winning koi ponds, so you're saying, hey, these are being recognized for something, and then you say the exact kind of pond. Now, it's up to you to determine how niche you want to take it. Do you want to be the person who only sells koi? Do you want to do a specific kind of fish? Do you want to do a specific kind of aquatic plants? So you have to answer these questions. I can't do this for you. But then, award-winning koi ponds you can be proud of, which ends with an emotional reason to follow you and to why they would want to work with you, because now you're invoking pride because it has become very evident to me that the water feature space is almost a luxury, but it's an emotional luxury because people spend their entire lives wanting a pond, wanting a tranquil area. They want somewhere to where they could take their daughter and dip the daughter's toes in the pond and feed the fish, right? And I think that's really cool because you have an emotional advantage over the roofer. Because the roofer is always going to be in demand because, well, you don't need water leaking, right? If you're living in Florida and there's a hurricane, you don't care what roofer is working for you because you need a roof for a hurricane. But in your case, it's luxury, it's emotional. You have these connections that are so much deeper than just, I build ponds. So here are some really easy personal branding strategies that will help you position yourself as a public figure. Now keep in mind the reasons why you're trying to build your personal brand: money, mission, vanity. Answer those for yourself. And then also remember why somebody would want to follow you: motivation, connection, education, entertainment. So you can, number one, receive features and quotes in the press. I would say that this is something that you could do on a high level if you'd like. I've been able to land Forbes feature and entrepreneur feature and newspaper features and all that stuff. Haven't paid for any of them. I think it's also important time to say that there's a lot of scumbags on the internet. Somebody says that they can get you 10,000 followers overnight, run the other way. Somebody says that they can get you on 200 news sites. All that is a press release that they're upcharging. If somebody says that they can get you a Google Knowledge panel, get you a Wikipedia page or whatever else, or get you in Forbes, run away. They're all unethical. They're all snake oil salesmen. I wouldn't trust them. You can do and get all of these results for absolutely free, and by building influence and by having an ethical backbone, right? Being able to say, no, I'm doing it the right way, just like you're not going to go ahead and upcharge a client at the end because you know you can. You're not going to do that. You're better than that. Then you can also do podcast interviews, whether you want to start your own podcast like Eric, or you want to go and be interviewed by Eric, right? I know I'm using him a lot as an example just because I believe that he is one of the most successful people to do it in terms of building his personal brand. I think you could look at what he's done at a high level and reverse engineer it specifically for your space. You can also do traditional forms of media communication, such as radio and television appearances. I imagine a lot of your local areas, right? If you're positioning yourself as the #1 water feature expert in your region, then you can go and get on the news stations and be like, hey, I'm a local business, this is what I'm doing. Or you could even go and do the water feature for the news station. Whatever it is, start building those relationships with the people of influence, right? The decision makers. Just like you're not going to talk to the son about building a pond. You're going to be like, hey kid, can you go get your father? Right? And then you're going to talk to the decision maker, and then the father will probably send him over to the wife, right? Because she's the decision maker. But you need to go with the people of influence and start building those relationships and then making yourself available for that expertise. Then you can also create content on your industry and subject matter. I've already touched on that. Authorship, so writing a book. At the end of this, come catch me at the table. I have a signed copy for every single one of you. But writing a book is a great, example of this guy knows what he's talking about. Public speaking, writing articles and columns. Now I know in your space it's not like there are 100 different websites that are like, hey, let's go ahead and talk about koi fish, right? But if you were able to take some of those magazines or take some of those niche blog articles or blog spaces and start writing about your industry or writing about something pertinent to building a pond or issues or dealing with overflow or dealing with heating in the winter, these are all public displays of competence. And then finally, which is what you are all doing today, is associating with other professionals. Now, the final thing that I'll say on the subject matter is that your personal brand is a lifelong commitment. How long does it take to grow a redwood tree? How long does it take to grow an oak tree? Hundreds of years. Now, you give me and another dude a couple of beers and a chainsaw, we can have it cut down in a couple of hours. So your reputation is the same exact way. So always be cautious with what you're doing, who you're associating with, what you're posting, what you're doing, what you're doing offline. If you're not going to feel comfortable doing something offline or talking about it with your friends and family, don't talk about it online. Really simple. And just realize that your personal brand is a lifelong commitment. Now, that is pretty much my entire presentation in terms of what I wanted to talk about with you guys today, but I'd love to take a couple of minutes and open it up for a Q&A.
So personal branding, you mean like focusing on and not specialty water water gardens? How do you, which one would I do? Because I'm Ann, but I
Okay.
own Specialty Water Gardens.
So-
Ann has a Facebook page, and so does Specialty Water.
Bingo. Bingo. Just like I'm Isaac, but I also have a company page for Mashman Consulting Group. So it'd be, hey, my name is Ann. I am the founder of Specialty Water Gardens, or your business's name. And that gives your business automatic authority too, because now everybody who knows you on a personal level will be able to want to work with your business because you're the person behind it. And to talk about one other thing, which I didn't include in the slideshow, but has become evident to me as well in terms of a need, is a lot of you guys are not able to go to the job site 24/7. You have a team of contractors and guys who can come out and get it done for you. So how can you leverage their personal brands to grow your business, right? And to make it to where you can start separating yourself a little bit, taking a step back and letting somebody else be the representation of the company. Let me use an example here. How many of you have had a friend or family member that has been like, man, Jack, I'm underpaid. My boss sucks. The products aren't even that good. I haven't had a day off in 2 months. Would you ever want to support that business that your friend is working for? Probably not, because you know that it's not great. Even though your friend and family member might be a part of that business. Now, conversely, if you have a friend or family member that says, hey, man, I absolutely love my position at this bank. My boss is great. The security is wonderful. I have benefits. The interest rates are competitive. Who would you go with? A random bank that you found online? Go with Chime or Cash App? Or would you be like, man, my friend said really good things about their work. Let me go ahead and work with them. Let me open up a bank account with that business. And you, as business owners who have teams of individuals below you, your employees from an HR, human resources perspective, are representations of your business and will either destroy your reputation. So if you have an employee who has some grudge and is like, man, my boss sucks, I'm not getting what I needed, they're late on payroll, whatever, they're going to ruin your company's reputation in private. So ensuring that they are satisfied, and then if anything, I would say encouraging them to become representatives of your business will give you a huge competitive advantage, because now they feel like they are partnered with you. They don't feel like they're just an employee, another contractor. Like, I feel like contractor is almost a dirty word to some people, because it feels like, oh man, you don't even get benefits, right? You're an independent contractor, you're W-9, I don't need to go ahead and even put you on insurance, right? So it's like, but having these people that feel like they're partners with you, that will be huge. So for example, later this year I'm bringing on a COO for MCG. His name is Eric Chow. I've worked with him in my previous business. And I am going to have him go on podcast interviews and go on a press run and create content and be a representative for my business and create training, programs and everything, even though I'm not there. And then that expands the company's image. That expands the company's brand to where now it's not, oh yeah, these are just some blue collar guys who have a pond business. No, this is the #1 pond building business in the St. Louis area, in the Houston area. And so it's again, how you're positioning yourself and then how you're positioning your company makes the world of difference.
Sorry about my English. I will try to make me understand. But how do you prepare for people are really mean in the internet?
Yeah.
So I make my own page, but I'm a woman and I'm young. And one thing that makes me drop off, I'm on again. But I was pregnant and people was talking about my physical appearance, like I was fat or something like that.
Yeah.
Not about my professional. So there was so few bad comments.
Yeah.
But there were, and they hurt me, like hormones and
Yeah.
everything, and it was difficult. So how do you lead with all
Man,
that?
I'm glad this is on video. They're pathetic wastes of space. They don't matter. Ignore them completely.
I know.
It's natural, and it's easier said than done. But I think you need to understand that if they're taking the time out of their lives to comment something on a woman's page that they don't even know, can you imagine what they're going through at home?
Well,
How unsatisfied they are in their life?
I know, but when you, first time you read that about yourself, like it's difficult
Yeah.
to continue doing it.
And I imagine
Now
as a
I'm
woman
on
too,
again,
even
but
more.
It's really difficult. How do you prepare so
Yeah.
you know before it happens what to do?
Well, I suppose anytime you're putting yourself out there, you're creating a piece of content, or even that people always have something to say, right? You could literally cure cancer and somebody would call you a conspiracist. You could save the animals, right? Save an animal from extinction and somebody would be like, oh my God, he did this 20 years ago, right? He said this and something. People always have something to complain about. And I think knowing that every time you are creating a post, you're creating something, you are putting yourself out there as a target. Think about celebrities, right? Celebrities are a good example. Now, if I was to ask, how many of you want to become famous? Genuinely. Any one of you want to become famous? No, all right, Eric. Okay, you are. But here's the thing. Think about the amount of public exposure that these celebrities have. Every single thing about their life, from the way they're raising their children, to their relationships, to their business, to how they're dressing, to getting a Brazilian butt lift, that's all in the public's eye. That's crazy. Now, you as public figures in your industry, you're not trying to become famous. You're trying to become infamous and famous for your profession, to where you can become the number one person in your profession. It doesn't matter if you're in the water feature space, if you're a distributor for it, if you're a consultant, if you're a landscaper, whatever it is, you need to become the person who is sought after, rather than you having to go out and do all of the opportunities yourself and seeking it. And it can be as simple as putting a call to action out. What's crazy is, the reason I even had a conversation with Eric on Facebook was I made one post on one evening, and I said, I want to be on your podcast, period. That was the only thing I said. Eric commented and said, let's do it, right? So calls to action, even from a business standpoint, right? Trying to sell something, sell a product, sell a service. Your calls to action don't need to have 100 funnel pages. They don't need to have $100,000 worth of ad copy that you hired some award-winning copywriter to write. It can become a very simple call to action that costs absolutely nothing. So, but that is a really phenomenal question. I think just accepting that you're putting yourself out there is big. Yeah?
So I'm going to ask you a question. So whenever you received all that negativity and such as you were getting started on social media, how did you overcome that?
Well,
how did you pick yourself back up? Because I know I was around you, but not in your early years. So how'd you do that?
Yeah, my fiance has definitely a good perspective. And if you've ever listened to Andy Frisella, which obviously I quoted him, you know that he's a big advocate for taking the dark energy and putting it on your shoulder. And I have the same exact approach. So I have a mental list in my head of everybody who's doubted me. People who have talked crap. And I'm like, oh wait, I got on Forbes. What did you do? And I'll take these accomplishments, and it might sound a little narcissistic, but in my perspective, I view it as, I was able to accomplish something that I set my mind out to do. That's really cool. Now I can teach other people how to duplicate those results. And so I'll take that dark energy, I'll carry it on my shoulder, and I'll have an entire list made up in my head of, you know what, you said this. It's interesting, when I started in high school, I had some kids who were making fun of me, and within the last year, they started following me and looking to me for business advice with their friends. And I'm already so much farther ahead in my journey than they are when they talked crap a couple years ago. And so again, it's like not letting it hold you back and obsess over it and think, oh my God, maybe they're right. Maybe, it's kind of like you're back in school, with everybody gossiping.
Just a comment on what she was saying.
Yeah.
Maybe have an assistant to go through the comments and then read out the bad comments, and obviously if there's a comment that can be talked about,
right,
then she can go into that. But like you said, right, people, they just make comments because they feel bad, and they want to make somebody else feel worse.
Well, it's interesting, and I know, Eric, you had your hand, and then Brian, you have your hand as well. A lot of these social media platforms have actually introduced filters. So on YouTube, you can filter out specific words, right? And this is bigger for larger channels. They'll go in and make sure that there's a filter to where, if it's like a racial slur or a certain profane word, it'll go to the moderation section. And I believe that Instagram, Twitter, there are other platforms too, if you go into the privacy settings, that you can go ahead and say, all right, let me go ahead and cut out this word where now I don't even have to see it. Hiring an assistant would be ideal, but does everybody, number one, want to give up the privacy of their own social media account, their personal account? Number two, do they necessarily want to hire somebody? And number three, even if you do have a social media manager for your business, you shouldn't be having them do your personal socials as well. You would need somebody entirely different, in my opinion, because that way they can focus 100% on the business rather than trying to grow your own personal profile. Brian?
Well, with social media, even the bad comments are good, right? It helps you trend. It's getting attention.
Yeah, helps the algorithm.
So it's helping you out. It's likes, it's comments, it's bringing more people there. And there's, I know on Instagram, I don't know if it's the real Wendy's account, but you've seen the fake Wendy's.
It is the real account, probably.
It is the real Wendy's account.
Yeah.
How they handle that is hilarious.
Yes.
And it's actually getting them better traction. And when you're thinking of building your brand, especially in the social media world, it's a separate facade almost. And that's what you're creating on social media. So all that stuff, even if somebody's saying, oh, you look fat, well, no bad press is bad press,
Yeah,
right?
be like, okay, hater, bye.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that takes a little bit of ego in order to even come to that conclusion and say, you know what, all right, screw you, go off. But I think you should take pride in what you're doing, right? If you're putting yourself out there and trying to build something great so you can take care of your family, so you can hire people, so you can, help achieve a specific goal for a person who wanted to have that pond from the time they were a little kid, it's like you're doing something great. So what is that person on social media talking about, right? Pathetic wastes of space, in my opinion. I know that's harsh, but that's my perspective on it. Like, seriously, screw you. Eric?
Yeah, I would say lean into that for sure because it just helps the algorithm.
Yeah.
It's like a Google review. You get a bad review, it depends on everyone looks at you and how you respond to it. So it could be a benefit to you like Wendy's.
Huge.
But one thing I want to share with you, Isaac, you have some really veteran pond builders in here. 25 years, 20 years, 10, 15 years. Why should they, they've been promoting their business, personal brand, if they will, if they thought so. Should they start now to build something out as their own personal identity, and why?
Yeah, and phenomenal question. And just to go back on the Google review thing, taking the time, if somebody leaves a 1 or 2 star review, or even if they leave a 5-star review, take the time and respond to each and every single one of them. And if it's a negative review, say, hey, Jamie, I'm sorry that you had this experience and you had this to say. I would love to keep this, and have a conversation with you and see what we could do as a company to resolve this issue. So even if they do not respond to you and they don't reach back out, in the public's eye, they see that this business cares. This person cares. And what you could do is you could actually address the review as Jamie, founder, right? And so now it shows that you have a deep connection and you have a deep responsibility to your clients and what you're doing. Now, to go to Eric's question, talking about if you've already been in the space, right? You're in your 60s, 50s, 70s, 80s. Why would you take the time to even do this? Well, number one, I would say that falls underneath the mission category. Chances are, if you're that deep in your career, you're not worried about money. You're not trying to scale. You're probably looking to exit. So that means that you're in the mission category and you can become that mentor to people. And there's somebody recently, I don't know his name, but he was the founder of, I think, Century Real Estate or one of the massive real estate companies. And he's like 86 years old, and he just recently got on Instagram, and he's talking about, hey, I lost out on $150 million. I lost out on this, or this was my craziest story. And he's sharing these details because he already has the track record, he has the experience, he has the credibility, so now he can pour into the younger generation. It's kind of like, going to church, and when I was younger, I loved listening to the old dudes. I would go and sit there with a cup of coffee, and they would just talk about things. They weren't even things that necessarily interested me, but I liked the storytelling, or listening to my Boy Scout troop master, telling a war story, or talking about their experience. And that had an emotional connection to me. And if you can have that emotional connection with a stranger on the internet, you never know who you might be able to influence and impact down the road. Just like one of my earliest mentors was like Gary Vee, and I don't even like Gary anymore. I feel like you graduate from his content as you get into space, but he will forever have some place in my journey and some place in what I got going on. And you can be that person for the younger generation. If anything, loud mouth public figures that have a backbone are needed more than ever. Not only in the pond space, but I'm talking about just in general on social media. I think that's a necessity now.
Loudmouth public figures, got it.
I love that. Any more questions? I know that in terms of timing, we're coming to a close, but if any of you have any other questions, it can be as specific, as broad as you might have them. I'd love to answer them.
This might be for you, or maybe somebody else in the room, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do any kind of social media content or anything like that while you're on the property of a client, if you're doing some sort of work with a pond, is it kosher to get permission? Is it legal to get permission? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
What's the process for that if somebody knows?
What I would say is, number one, this is not legal advice, talk to a lawyer. Just protect my ass. The second thing is, I would say come up with a really simple contract that just gives you permission to film on their property, especially if you're doing like the entire process, but you're not filming the person. But I mean, after the fact too, I would ask them and say, hey, you know, William, I know that we just knocked out this project. If you love it, like you say you love it, why don't you record a really quick video testimonial for us? We'd really appreciate that. Not only have them leave a Google review, which is good, but if you could have a video testimonial saying, hey, I just hired, man, I need glasses. What's your name?
Zach.
Zach, okay. I just hired Zach, and his company, X, Y, and Z, just knocked out the dream pond. I would hire them, right? So now you have a video testimonial, which also shows that the client is willing to go above and beyond for you because you went above and beyond for them. And so that's on a deep level, but I would absolutely get you know, a contract, just like a release form that says, hey, we grant Zach permission to film on this property. Definitely.
Put it into your contract that they signed for the works, put it in this fine print. That you agree for us to film for.
But then I would also have a conversation with them and say, hey, just as a note, and ask them, because you don't want to put in the fine print, and they're like, man, I don't want you filming on my property. So I would still take the extra step.
Issue yet?
Yeah.
Hey, can we get a selfie real quick with Isaac? I want to get a.
I appreciate it, brother.
Let's turn around, go that way. Can you guys throw your hands up or something like that? Come over here. Come over here.
Where?
Let's get a selfie right here.
Cool.
Get in the back. Let's spread this out.
Let me get on the van.
Put your hands up. Awesome, man.
Love it. Thank you, guys.
Give Isaac a hand, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. One other thing that I want to do to show you guys how simple it is I'm going to pull up my camera real quick. And I'm just going to record a really short video. I'm inferring that you guys signed the form. Permission not needed, right?
We signed the form.
Okay. What's going on, everyone? At the Atlantic-Oase Professional Conference, just delivered a killer keynote in front of these amazing people, water feature professionals, very experienced, absolutely love this. It was an amazing time, amazing event. Shout out to Atlantic-Oase and Jeff Weemhoff for bringing me out. Much love.
Yeah.
So now, I take that video, I throw it in a little AI editing software called Captions AI. I pay $10 a month. It'll edit it, which saves me $1,000 a month from having to hire a video editor. Post that on Instagram, put up a nice caption, post on Facebook as a reel, post it on TikTok, post it on YouTube. I'm very aggressive with my strategy. You don't necessarily have to be the same, but it's still, the more places and the more algorithms you can get to work for you, it's free money. Because all of this you don't have to pay for. It's organic. One final question, we'll wrap it up.
Out of all those platforms, what is the most effective?
Facebook. Undeniably, man. Undeniably. You know, and you can make the argument that every platform is only as effective as you are effective yourself, right? But in my experience, 99% of my business ironically comes from Facebook, but from a visibility standpoint, LinkedIn is great because it ranks higher in terms of SEO and Google. But then Instagram Reels also perform really good. But the people I'm connecting with on Instagram, I'm not necessarily narrowing it down to be my client base. But from a visibility standpoint, it's good. But from I can work with this professional, Facebook, because it's also the most personal. And on Facebook, you know, you can go and send a connection request to some of your biggest mentors. Same thing on LinkedIn. Like, I don't know if you guys know Patrick Bet-David from Valuetainment, Lewis Howes, right? Evan Carmichael. I go to LinkedIn and I send them a connection request and say, hey, Evan, I'd love to connect with you. And they hit accept. And now I'm in their network, and so I send them a message, just like when I published this paper, right? I said, hey, I wrote this article, and then I checked back on LinkedIn a couple weeks later, and I saw that they actually read the message. Either they read it or somebody from their team. But regardless, I can now show up on their phone. And so really understanding that if you're going to spend time on any platform, come to learn and understand those little nuances and study them. And if you need help, ask for help, right? Find somebody, go to YouTube, and there are so many content creators that go on a very specific basis of like what you need to know to use Instagram, what you need to know to use TikTok, and just educate yourself. And you will not learn everything overnight, but the fact is you're working towards that, to where you can become a more effective operator.
What was that app you used for editing?
It's called Captions CAPTIONS.ai. It's available, I believe, on Android as well as iOS, which is where I have it downloaded. And it's been great. And so what it'll do is I'll upload a video, just like I did that's 17 seconds long, and it'll go through and edit the video for captions with a 99% accuracy rate from what I've seen. And then you can add custom music to it. You can do focus zooms, a bunch of these other features that 5 years ago, I would have had to pay $60 for somebody to edit that one video for me. Now I pay $10. So, I mean, conversation on artificial intelligence is something for another time, but you can absolutely adopt it for your personal brand. You need a press release for your business, have ChatGPT help you write a press release. You need an article, have it help you format it. Find some plot holes, some ways that you can improve it. You know. Well, I don't want to go over our time and overextend the welcome, but thank you guys for showing up. Absolutely loved it. And let's go sign some books.
Yeah.